afternoon. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Firoz. Good afternoon.
Very good afternoon, sir.
Okay. Actually, I am receiving the emails from the participants also. I think you have sent them the link, joining link.
Mhm.
There is the date shows that 31st March. So have you sent the updated link to the participants?
Yes.
Just now we
Okay.
have sent the link. Participants are joined.
Okay. Okay. And can you also send me the attendees link because I have to update it on our software. Oh, NIDM training portal.
Just a second, I'm sending.
Ha, ha, ha. And this link will be same for the tomorrow's session, na?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
We will begin with the program shortly. Kindly stay connected. Very good afternoon. I welcome you to the second day of Occupational Health Hazards and Safety Measures for Health Workers, organized by National Institute of Disaster Management and co-partnered by Department of Resource Management and Consumer Science, CCS, MQA. Let me give you a quick recap of yesterday's session. Professor Anil Gupta, sir, discussed the challenges faced by paramedics during COVID-19. He raised his concern over occupational health being considered as poorly addressed subject. He feels that workers should continue to enjoy their right to decent, healthy, and safe working condition in the context of COVID-19. In his topic on ergonomic issues for the healthcare workers, Dr. L.P. Singh emphasized on the ergonomic injuries and musculoskeletal disorders among healthcare personnel caused by sudden or sustained exposure to force, vibration, repetitive motion, and awkward posture. Hence, healthcare facilities should have occupational health programs in conjunction with the program for infection prevention and control. In his address on heat stress adaptation, climate change and health perspective, Dr. Joydeep Majumdar, scientist D ICMR, explained that the extreme heat have health consequences like it disturbs thermoregulation of the body, leads to increased body core temperature, skin temperature, heart rate, sweating, dehydration, work efficiency, discomfort, fatigue, injuries, and even death. Climate change will increase the frequency and the intensity of heat waves, and a range of preventive measures, including improvements to housing, management of chronic diseases, and institutional care of elderly and vulnerable, are needed to be developed to reduce health impacts. In order to start with the program, I cordially welcome Dr. Gopal Verma ma'am, Ms. Fatima Amin ma'am, Mr. Harshit Sharma, and Professor Ram Maikala sir as the eminent speakers of today's program. Our first speaker of the day is Dr. Komal Verma ma'am. Let me give you a quick brief about Dr. Gopal Verma ma'am. Dr. Gopal Verma ma'am is an expert in atmospheric chemistry and climate resilience. She has done her PhD in mitigation of fluorocarbonaceous aerosols in rural areas from Jawaharlal University. She has been conferred as the NASA Junior Scientist of the Year Award in 2018. She is the alumni of prestigious European research courses of atmosphere from Grenoble, France. She has publication in various journals and articles. We wholeheartedly welcome you, ma'am. Now I would like to request Dr. Gopal Verma for a lecture on occupational health and safety in chemical industries.
Thank you very much, Ms. Anjali, for the introduction. And I would like to congratulate.
Ma'am, you're not audible.
Am I audible now?
You are audible.
I'm audible, right?
Yes. We have made you the presenter. You can share your slides from your side.
All right, sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, please confirm if my slides are visible.
It's loading. Yes, ma'am, visible.
Is it in full screen mode and moving?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Not
ma'am.
yet. Yes, it's moving.
All right. So, thank you so much for having me here, and I would like to congratulate entire coordinating team from Mana Pratap University, Udaipur, and the coordinators from NIDM side to take this very important topic and discuss about occupational safety for health workers. So I will be focusing my presentation specifically on health and safety in chemical industries. So to start with, so far in India, there are around 350,000 factories which are registered. And there are so many factories which are, running, but they are not registered. So that number together makes the entire number even bigger. And out of these factories, 6,000 units are undertaking hazardous processes. They're dealing with chemicals and similar kind of agents. And it's not a surprise that chemical and allied industries is the fastest growing segment in Indian industries, because in every sector, the most basic, the most fundamental thing that is required is one or other kind of chemical, right? So that's why this industry is growing at very fast pace. So chemicals have their own utility, but their inherent properties are hazardous and dangerous in itself. So it's very important. That's why to understand the inherent properties of these chemicals. So whether with the help of these chemicals, we are manufacturing something, we are transporting the chemicals, or we are using these chemicals for further manufacturing of other kind of products. So all these have to encompass the inherent properties. That are we well aware with those properties, that they are not hazardous in any kind of situation. So chemicals come with various kinds of nature. They can be flammable, they can be explosive, they can be toxic, they can be corrosive, right? So when we are dealing with chemicals, their whole life cycle should be considered when we are trying to assess their dangers and benefits, right? Because chemical accidents are disastrous at a very, very big scale. We all are very well aware of the Bhopal Gas Tragedy, where lakhs of people were affected, and disasters like these Bhopal Gas Tragedy or Chernobyl disaster. So these may happen for a few days, but their effect is continued for years together. So that's why it's very important to avoid these chemical accidents, and this can be done when we can properly understand a chemical and its properties. So I would like to focus here on the scenario after COVID-19 lockdown. So COVID-19 scenario, the lockdown period was in itself a very new, a very different kind of thing for all of us. So majority, or you can say, and nobody was prepared for this kind of scenario. And so especially the chemical industries, they had to shut down for a long period of time, and then at majority of the places no proper protocol was followed for reopening these chemical industries, and that resulted into various kinds of chemical accidents in just 1 year. So you can see here that in just 2020, 25 serious industrial accidents have happened, and they have taken more than 120 lives. And all of them was trying to reopen after the lockdown. These industries were trying to resume their operation. So there are a few I noted down here. So you can see here in line, in 3 months, they happened all together, like styrene gas leak of at the LG Polymers. We'll be talking about it in a bit of detail. Then toxic gas leak at Visakhapatnam Pharmaceuticals in June. Then right in the next month, there was Niveli lignite boiler explosion. Then in the same month, there was fire at the candle factory in Ghaziabad. And this continued. And recently, in this year only, 6 January of this year, there was a gas leak in Surat. So this kind of accidents are continuing. So where are we going wrong? What is it that is going wrong? That is very important to understand. Why? Because especially the workers that are working in these kind of chemical industries, they are at the major risk, right? So then they are at the major risk, and then comes the population living close by these industries, right? So my slides are moving, right? Can somebody confirm? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So here, this is the data for just 2020, and so many chemical accidents, industrial accidents have happened. And you can see here that as Gujarat and Maharashtra are the hubs of industries in India, you can see majority of the accidents happen in Gujarat and Maharashtra, and also in some other parts. And you can see here the cause of accident has also been enlisted here, and the causes are majorly gas leaks, then explosions, then equipment failures, then there is mine explosion. So you can see here that these are the causes of these accidents. And when we see here the country-wise data, you can see here that global deaths related to industrial accidents are highest in India. Right? So this is something really that is need to be looked upon. So for this, a global harmonized system, it's called GHS, it has been developed. So what is this GHS? What is this globally harmonized system? So it's not a regulation, it's not a set of rules, but it is a kind of a framework. So this framework is used by the competent authorities, and they may select appropriate harmonized classification and communication elements for whatever chemical, for whatever material you are using, the manufacturer is using, right? So these competent authorities will decide how to apply the various elements of the GHS. So there are various elements of the GHS. So every industry does not need to include all kinds of elements. So each industry have the freedom to choose which elements are required, which elements of GHS are required for this system. Right? So it depends on their needs and the target audience and which kind of work that is being carried out in the industries. So if we talk about the elements of GHS, these elements are: first is harmonized criteria for classifying substances and mixtures according to their health, environmental, and physical hazards. So whatever substance or mixtures that particular industry is dealing with, so defining their criteria of health, environmental, and physical hazards. This is the first element of GHS. And second element is harmonized hazard communication elements. So whatever these hazardous substances that industry is dealing with, how you're going to communicate, like whether this element is being dealt with that particular industry. So these harmonized elements of GHS are nothing but are a collection of building blocks. So they can altogether help us in forming a regulatory approach. Right? Now, what is a HAZCOM? So HAZCOM is Hazard Communication Standards. So in simple words, it's a language. It's a language to convey which chemicals are we dealing with, right? It's just like a language we are talking. It's just like a language that we use to understand a few basic things. So HAZCOM is nothing but it's a language that is being used to communicate the hazards and the chemicals that one is dealing with. So this hazard communication standard is designed to protect against chemical source illnesses and injuries. So in this language, you can say you communicate which chemical can possess which kind of illness, it can give which kind of injury. Then it also ensures that employers and employees are provided with sufficient information regarding anticipating, recognizing, evaluating, and controlling a particular chemical hazard. And also it encompasses the appropriate protective measures. So this hazard communication standard, it includes everything that you need to know about that chemical, right? So this HAZCOM information is provided through safety data sheets, SDSs, or material safety data sheets, MSDS, and then labels and employee training. So let me bring you again back to the most basic question, the most basic comparison. People are generally confused between what is the difference between hazard and risk. For most of the people, this seems like it's the same thing, like hazard is risky and risks come from hazards, right? but it's nothing like that. So there is a difference between hazard and risk. So hazard refers to the inherent property of a substance that is capable of causing an adverse effect. And risk refers to the probability that an adverse effect will occur with specific exposure conditions. Okay, so I would like to explain this with the help of an example. For example, concentrated nitric acid. Okay, it has the inherent property of toxicity. It is highly toxic in nature. Right. So this is the hazard. This is the inherent property of nitric acid. But the risk of nitric acid will be defined like how it will be spilled and in what area it will be spilled, in what body part it will be spilled. So that will define the risk related with nitric acid. If it is just in your finger, then the risk is this much only. But if it is all through your body or through a large part of room or floor, then the risk is that big. So this is the difference between hazard and risk. So for a particular substance, hazard, it will represent hazard, similar hazard in all situations, but its risk will differ depending upon how it is contained, how it is handled, how personal protective measures are used, and various other conditions as I just explained, right? So this is the difference between hazard and risk that one needs to take care of, one needs to know. Now, what is hazard determination? So this is the process of evaluating available scientific evidence in order to determine if a chemical is hazardous pursuant to HAZCOM. So in this, every chemical is being evaluated in terms of their hazardousness, how hazardous is the particular chemical is, and what kind of HAZCOM, what kind of language that is needed to be developed to communicate about this, about its hazardous nature. Okay, so this is basically hazard determination. And in this, we deal with both physical hazards as well as health hazards, right? So physical hazards like flammability, how reactive is that chemical, then health hazards, how carcinogenic is that chemical, how sensitive is that chemical for skin, for our body. So HAZCOM provides the basic information for the hazard. Okay, so and it's very important to note that hazard determination does not involve an estimation of risk. It is totally dependent on the situation, on the area of the hazard that is happened. So now who must conduct this HAZCOM or hazard determinations, right? So basically the chemical manufacturers should conduct this HAZCOM, hazard determinations. And they can be chemical manufacturers and importers on the chemicals they produce or import. Then there are distributors and employers who are dealing with these chemicals. They choose to conduct these hazard determination. It's not compulsory for them, but it will be really good if they do so, because they are also dealing with chemicals equally as the chemical manufacturers and importers are doing. So it's very important that these procedures are available in writing. Okay, they must be described in writing and they should be made available to upon request to all the employees and the designated representatives. And a very important part of this hazard determination process is documentation. So whether the a whole procedure has been done for a particular chemical, how hazardous it is, which kind of diseases it can cause, which kind of injuries it can cause, what are the safety measures that are supposed to be taken if a gas leak happens, if the equipment failure happens. So the documentation is very important so that the future generation, the coming next lot of workers is made very well aware about the all do's and don'ts regarding that particular chemical. So this is, you can say, the language or the HAZCOM that I was talking about. So this is the COSH symbols. It is also called control of substances hazardous to health symbols. So just by looking at these symbols, you are able to get a lot about what is being contained in that particular container. So if you see a symbol like this, it's saying health hazard. So the substance contained in that particular container can be carcinogenic, mutagenic, and it represents all these kind of toxicity. When you see a flame, it gives an indication that a flammable substance is there inside the container. So it can be peroxides, it can be reactives, flammable gases, self-heating gases. So this exclamation mark is representing warning that the substance may be irritant or skin sensitizer. It may be harmful. It may be contain acute toxicity and so on. Then there is gas cylinder that represent gases are under pressure under that particular container. Then corrosion, the substance may give skin corrosion, eye damage. Basically, it contains corrosive material. Then you can see with this sign, you can see that this particular material is explosive. Then oxidizers, when you see a circle and a flame over it, then it means that contains oxidizers. Then when you see a tree and a dying fish, that implies that there is an aquatic toxicity. A material may give aquatic toxicity, and this is a very well known sign that we all are very well aware of. It represent acute toxicity. So this is kind of a language that we use in chemical industries to communicate which kind of material is carried in which container. So very briefly, I would like to talk about one of the important chemical disasters that have happened in past. So here you can see this is Oppo explosion in Germany. It happened long back in BASF chemical plant. So what happened in this, the tower silo containing ammonium sulfate and ammonium nitrate, it exploded and it killed 600 people and injured 2,000 people. So what happened? What was the reason behind this explosion? That this plant's industrial process had been altered to lower density and humidity levels. See, when we are storing a particular chemical, it's very important to keep their parameters up to date, to their mark, right? Even a little variation in their density or humidity, temperature, these kind of levels may lead to such a big disaster. One of the example is here. Then Bhopal Gas Tragedy, we will talk about it very shortly. So it happened on 3rd December 1984. Then the explosion of Benzio. So both of these are mine explosions. So this was an explosion of gas and coal powders, and you can see that around 1549 miners were killed. This was the mining accident of Europe in France, and around 1100 people died because of the ignition of methane. Then this is the Deepwater Horizon oil disaster. It happened not it happened only recently in 2010. So they were drilling the Macondo prospect of the Louisiana coast, and this fire took place, and it resulted into oil spill for 106 days, and it deeply affected the aquatic life and the nearby disaster. You can see here, this is the oil spill all across the sea. Then the Chernobyl disaster of Ukraine is something that nobody can forget, and it's considered as one of the most expensive disasters in the history because it costed around $200 billion loss, right? And immediately it may have killed 43 workers, but in the next years, it killed around 125,000 people because of the radiation that were emitted after the series of explosions from Chernobyl nuclear power plant. So these are a few very serious, very major disasters I talked about, and a lot, minor disasters are happening every now and then. So out of all these, I would like to talk about two disasters, the chemical disasters that have happened in India. One is a very recent one. It is the styrene vapor leak at LG Polymer at Vizag. So styrene, so LG polymer, it builds engineered plastics, and styrene is one of the raw material that is being used in this industry. So on May 7, 2020, most of you must have remembered, this is the time when industries have started to reopen after the COVID-19 lockdown, and proper protocol was not being followed. Right. So what happened? So a runaway reaction within the M6 tank. So M6 tank is where the styrene monomer was stored. So a runaway reaction happened in the M6 tank and caused the gas leaks. Further, it led to rise in the temperature and pressure. So inside the tank, auto polymerization of styrene vapor leak, a styrene vapor started to happen, and which led to the leak of that particular vapor. So you can see here that inside this tank, the temperature reached to around 145 degrees Celsius. And that's when it started to vaporize and the gas started to leak. So there are many factors that were held responsible for this gas leak. So the staff, the in charges, the engineers that were there, they were not adequately skilled to handle this kind of emergency. Then switching on and off of the refrigeration and air condition system was not proper. Siren was not activated. So siren is the most important thing in an industry. Forget chemical industry and any kind of industry to intimate about the emergency. So when siren is not activated, is the first most failure, right? Then the frequency of measurement of the polymer and this TBC, this is also a polymer, it was also not followed. Then so when this kind of emergency happens, so inhibitors like tertiary dodecyl mercaptan, this kind of inhibitors are introduced so that the temperature can be controlled, the rising temperature can be controlled. But during the time of emergency, its amount was very limited and it exhausted in a very few hours. So that's why it happened. Then there was no on-site emergency plan and no emergency mock drills, no process safety management system. So all these factors together they led to this kind of disaster. Right. And very briefly now, I would like to talk about this Bhopal gas tragedy. Everybody is although very well aware about it. So Union Carbide India Limited was a pesticide plant. So first of all, they used to import the raw materials like methyl isocyanate to make the 7-carbaryl pesticide. But they started to manufacturing there itself in India. So methyl isocyanate leak was one that happened during the Bhopal gas tragedy, and it was stored in 3 underground 68,000 liters tanks. These were named like this, and even government classified these plants as general, not hazardous, even when a hazardous substance like methyl isocyanate was being manufactured in this kind of industry. So this is the reaction that takes place. So when amine is reacted with phosgene gas, so phosgene gas is in itself a very hazardous, very toxic gas. So even its exposure can lead to serious damages. So when its reaction takes place, they form methyl isocyanate, and when methyl isocyanate reacts with alpha naphthol, it generates the 7th pesticide that particular industry used to make. So the leak of this particular gas happened during the Bhopal gas tragedy. And whenever a very big disaster has to happen, it gives a lot of signs in past. So you can see here that a lot of signs were there in the past. Like in 1976, there were complaints of pollution in the plants. Then a few workers were splashed with phosgene. Then a minor methyl isocyanate leak was also there in around 1982, 2 years before the Bhopal gas tragedy. if these signs could have been taken seriously, the Bhopal gas tragedy would not have happened, right? So whenever a big disaster have to happen, it definitely gives signs in past, right? So the reason is same for Bhopal gas tragedy as well. Water entered into the tanks, or one of the tanks of methyl isocyanate. It led to exothermic reaction, and the temperature inside the tank raised to 200 degrees Celsius, and around 30 metric tons of methyl isocyanate was leaked. So it's not a small amount, and it's a very, very toxic gas. So there are so many contributing factors. I will not go in detail because it all sum up to human errors, right? That people are not skilled, engineers are not skilled, then the equipments are not maintained to the level best. Then in fact, in case of Union Carbide Limited, the staff was cut to half, which is a very dangerous situation, because in this kind of emergency, a lot of staff is required to maintain the situation. Then evacuation plans were not there. Then response was also not adequate, because warning sirens were there, but they were deactivated after a few minutes. So people got to know, that the residents around the Union Carbide, they got to know that something is wrong, because they were having the itching eyes and they were having all the effects, but they were not able to comprehend as to what to do, right? So when this kind of gas leak happens, it also hampers the senses. It also hampers the thinking ability, the reaction, the action ability, right? So all this together, these kind of factors, they lead to this kind of the biggest tragedies. So I'm so sorry to make you show these kind of pictures. These are the pictures from Bhopal gas tragedy, the aftermath of Bhopal gas tragedies. So uh, it's okay that mock drills or safety drills may sound boring, right? All once in a while, but it can say, safeguard you from something like this, right? So just think, how many of you are prepared for a sudden emergency outbreak of fire or gas leak? Just ask yourself, are you prepared? And if not, just get the training. That's all I wanted to say from this presentation. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, ma'am. There is a technical issue. Please stay connected. Dr. Gopal, ma'am. Ma'am.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Actually,
But suddenly, Dr. Yes, sir.
no, Dr. Kopal has completed her PPT.
Yes, sir, but the host privileges are suddenly passed on to Kopal ma'am, so I'm not able to share anything. So could you make me the presenter, ma'am? Kopal ma'am, make me host, ma'am. Yes, sir. Please pass the host privileges to me, sir.
Wait. Now you are presenter.
No, sir, please pass the host privileges to me, sir. Okay,
I
sir.
think
Yes, sir.
yes.
Thank you so much, sir. Yes, sir. It's okay now. Yes. Now I would like to introduce the next speaker for today's session, Miss Fatima Amin, ma'am. Let me just share. So the next speaker for today's program is Ms. Fatima Amin ma'am. She is presently young professional at National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, New Delhi. Okay, I'm sorry, there is some confusion here. Next speaker for today is Mr. Harshit Sharma sir. My humble apologies. Mr. Harshit Sharma sir is the next speaker for today's program. Mr. Harshit Sharma is currently working as a young professional in National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, GOI, New Delhi, and has a vast experience in the field of administration. He has held various important administrative positions earlier at NIDM and has worked in the Department of Indian Oil Corporation IOCL. He was an integral project in nationwide quality.
हो गया
Yes, sir. Uh, so the topic of Harshit Sharma sir is sir, please could you please start your presentation, sir?
Ma'am, can you give me the sharing rights?
Yes, sir.
Anjali ma'am, you are not audible actually. Okay.
Sir, you are the presenter now.
Yes, yes, yes. Is my screen visible, ma'am?
Yes, sir, your screen is visible, sir.
Is it moving? Okay. So first I would like to thank NIDM and Maharana Pratap University of Agriculture, Udaipur, for giving me this opportunity to talk on such an important topic. And I also would like to congratulate both the organizations for emphasizing on such an important issue and important topic regarding occupational health safety. So I will start my presentation. So my topic is occupational health and safety, risk assessment and disaster management plan. So first we will talk on what is the risk assessment basically. So as we all know, as a consequence of health and safety awareness, many measures are being taken to ensure the security of an individual working in the industrial premises. And the risk assessment follows an extensive hazard analysis. This is basically the related to the hazard analysis. And risk is defined as a likelihood of an undesired event. This may be accident, this may be injury or death occurring within a specified period or under specified circumstances. And this may be either a frequency or a probability depending on the circumstances. And in the working atmosphere, it is not possible to avoid or eliminate risk factor completely. However, it is possible to minimize the risk factor to minimal or acceptable level. So basically, a risk assessment is the identification of the risk areas. So I would like to give one example over there, that if we will take the example of any organization. So we will in each and every organization is vulnerable for various disasters, various hazards, risks. So the identification of the risk areas of the requisite organization is called risk assessment, the assessment of the risk. Next, we will see the 5 steps of the risk assessment. So first is identification of the hazards of the requisite of the concerned organization or premises. Then the second step is determine who might be at risk and how. This may be the community, this may be the workers, We are talking about here the organization and the workers, healthcare workers. So we will talk on about the healthcare workers, in which manner they are vulnerable, and for which disaster, for which hazard they are vulnerable. So the determination of the hazard. Then third one is access. Access the likelihood and severity of the risk. In which manner this risk is severe for the workers, not only for the healthcare workers, for all the workers in any organization. This may be industrial organization, this may be the university, this may be the other NGOs or other type of organization. The next step is actions. So identify the actions to eliminate or control the risks. Next, we will move ahead to the actions phase. Then the identification of the measures. How can we control the risk? How can we mitigate the risk and manage the risk? And last one is evaluation. Evaluate. So conduct an evaluation. How can we evaluate the risk? So these are the 5 steps of the risk assessment. Next, what is the risk analysis? Study of risk, basically. So risk analysis follows as an extensive hazard analysis, which involves the identification and assessment of potential impact. This requires a thorough knowledge of failure probability, credible accident scenario, vulnerability of population, etc. Much of this information is difficult to get or generate, and consequently, the risk analysis is often confined to maximum credible accident studies. The hazard has been higher for workers directly exposed to coal handling areas, where not only the danger due to failure of machinery but also inhalation of dust exists. So risk analysis is basically, we have identified the risks. For example, 5 to 6 type of risk we have identified in any concerned organization. So we will take one risk from the identified risk, and then we will find out the gaps. We will analyze this concerned respective risk and identify the gaps. So this is called an analysis. This analysis of the hazard. This is called the risk analysis, basically. Next one is risk evaluation. As we all know, all systems, natural or man-made, are subject to failure, and the nature of failure varies widely, as do the causes of failure and the events leading to the failure. The failures of systems could be due to misconception of the system's required capability or environment, design deficiency and erroneous assumptions, errors in operational process, improper management of the systems, risk evaluation to determine the acceptable level and reduce the risk level. Control decision monitored for the meticulous implementation to prevent the occurrence of unclassified and unacceptable accidents. And risk is defined as probability of occurrence of an accident and its consequences. So we can say that the risk evaluation is the process we have followed to identify the risk and the measures. Next one is, we will move ahead to the planning phase. Risk control. How can we control the risk? So the on-site emergency planning and the off-site emergency planning is very, very important for any of the organization to control the risk. So the on-site emergency plan would be related to the final assessment, and it is the responsibility of the occupier management to formulate it. We have to prepare the plans. So the plan must be specific to the site as per the premises. The plan sets out way in which designated people at the site of the incident initiate supplementary actions, either inside or outside the workers at an appropriate time. And an essential of the plan is the provision for making the affected unit safe, for example, by shutting it down. And the plan also contains the full sequence of key personnel to be called in from other sections or from off-site. So on-site emergency planning is also very, very important. Next one is off-site emergency planning. The off-site emergency planning is an integral part of any major hazard control systems, and it was based on those accidents identified by the works management which could affect people and the environment outside the works. And the offsite plan follows logically from the analysis that took place to provide the basis for the on-site plan, and two plans was therefore complement to each other. Two plans means on-site planning and the off-site planning. And the key features of a good off-site emergency plan is flexibility in its application to emergencies other than those specifically included in the formation of the plan. Next one is emergency control centers. So the emergency control center is the place from which the operations to handle the emergency will be directed and coordinated. It has to be attended by the site work main controller, key personnel, and the senior officers of the fire and police services. I would like to cite here one example. As you all know, at the national level there is National Disaster Management Authority, and at the state level there is State Disaster Management Authorities, and at the district level there is the district disaster management authorities in each and every district of the country. So in each and every district DDMA, District Disaster Management Authority, they have their own disaster management cell. So what is the work of this cell? So they directly in any disaster situation, they directly connect the community, their situation, their problems. They directly connect the community with the local with the district government, with the district administration basically. So we can say that the DDMAs, the disaster management cells at the district level, are the bridge between the local government, between the district administration and the central or state governments. So in the same manner, we have to prepare our emergency control centers in our organization, in our respective organizations. So the process of the control centers may differ as per the current scenario, as per the situations, because if in any, we will take the example, if we will take the example of the industrial sector or chemical sector, so the emergency planning will be different for them. And if we will take the example of the infrastructure, we will take the example of the infrastructural level. So the infrastructure building of the establishment. So the planning and the emergency control centers role are different. So this this directly depend on the current scenario of the respective organizations. So emergency control centers should contain following, like adequate number of external. These are some basic examples basically. Adequate number of external telephones, adequate number of internal telephones, and a plan of the workers to show areas where there are inventories, in basically the preparation of the inventories of all the areas, location of safety equipment, assembly point, and truck parking information, a nominal role of employee, list of personnel with addresses, telephone numbers, the directory of the telephone number of the workers. So these are some measures and these are some steps which we can follow in the control centers, emergency control centers. Next one is personal protective equipment. So as you all can see in the picture, there are helmets, gloves. So these are the basic things which we can see in our day-to-day life, but these are very important. So personal protective equipment play a very important role in reducing the losses in case of an accident, and they provide protection to the workman from injuries during the execution of job. And the various I would like to cite here one example. I think you may think that these are the basic things, how can they help us? So if we all know in day-to-day life, when we are going to our office or any other places, where we are visiting any other place, so on the road we will take one example of a two-wheeler. So a bike rider is going on in his way, but he has not wear the helmet. So if there is a chance of the accident, so he is very vulnerable to the accident and the injury. His injury may increase and he is very vulnerable to the injury and the accidents. So this helmet may help his forehead in the case of the accidents. So we can take the basic examples in our day-to-day routine life. Gloves and protective clothing. This is the example of the chemical industry, since the chemicals are very corrosive and toxic. So those called upon to handle has been provided with gloves and protective clothing. Safety helmets. Everyone inside the plant and the visitors has to wear safety helmets, and also shoes for protecting their toes and heels. And the materials. This is also an important point. The material of the shoes has required being resistance to the type of the chemicals available within the plant. Next one is safety belts. Safety belts provide protection in case of fall while working at the height place. Then safety goggles and face shield also. Next one is disaster preventive measures. How can we prevent the disaster? What are the measures to prevent the disaster? So in order to prevent disaster due to fire, explosion, oil spillage, electrocution, liquid hot metal spillage, and other accidents, following preventive measures has been adopted. Design, manufacture and construction of all plant and machineries building has been as per national and international codes as applicable in specific cases and laid down by statutory authorities. And provisions of adequate access way for movement of equipment and personnel has been kept. Minimum 2 numbers of gates for escape during disasters have been provided, and ensure the availability of fire extinguishers and their use. And I would like to mention here one and another important point, that we in each and every organizations, we all have seen, we all can see that there are fire extinguishers for the emergency situations, but we also have to ensure their use, their maintenance, and in any emergency case, are we able to use them at the disaster situation? So this is also one important point which we all have to emphasize on that. Next one is water spraying in coal storage and iron ore area, fire hydrants with fire hoses in all areas where fire can break. So these are some disaster preventive measures. Next one is provide medical help in case of any emergency in any organization. So we all have some medical precautionaries, some medical healthcare facilities in our organizations, in the for the primary health, basically we can say. So this is for the situations we can observe that some altered mental sensorium with disorientation due to in the disaster situation, hot, red and dry skin, body temperature may increase, and throbbing headache and nausea, and muscle weakness and anxiety. So we all have to think over these issues. And so what are the steps, which we can take as the precautionary measure, as a first aid, we can say. So if the worker is unconscious, so don't try to give anything to drink or eat. And if the worker is alert and awake, so provide frequent sips of cool water or fluids like ORS solutions, electrol powder, glucose, etc. Loosen their clothing while maintain their dignity. And slowly splash or sponge with tap water. Increase the air flow by using a fan, as you can see in the picture. And in case of vomiting, turn the worker onto their side to avoid choking. So these are some first aid primary health precautionaries which we can take. Next one is occupational safety and health key principles, key points. So occupational safety, health and working conditions code 2020 consolidates the laws regulating the occupational safety, health and working conditions. And number of approvals and licenses required by employers have been drastically reduced, providing for ease of doing business. And a big change is putting the onus on employers to do the right thing for their workers. Sorry. And health and safety provisions for workers is not adequately provided for all workers have the right. And occupational safety and health policies must be established, and a national system for occupational safety and health must be established. A national program on occupational safety and health must be formulated and organized in each and every organizations. Continuous improvement of occupational safety and health must be promoted, And information is vital, important for the development and implementation of effective programs. Next one is a basic about the disaster management cycles. If any disaster occurs in our area or in our premises, so what is our next step? So this is the first step is response. So what is response? The efforts to minimize the hazards created by any disasters. So we can take the examples such as search, rescue, and emergency relief. The next point is the recovery. Next phase is recovery. So what is recovery? Recovery is returning the community to normal phase, to the normal condition. So we can take the examples of temporary housing and shelters, grants, medical care, medical aid, etc. Next one is mitigation. Next phase is mitigation. So what is mitigation? Mitigation is minimizing the effects of disasters. For example, building zonal codes, zoning, vulnerability analysis, and public awareness, public educations to mitigate the risk of the disasters. And the last one is preparation, preparatory phase. So preparedness is planning how to respond to the next disasters. For example, we can make the preparedness plan, disaster management plans for each and every sector, each and every organizations, emergency exercises, mock drills, trainings, warnings, develop early warning systems. So this is under preparedness phase. So this was about a brief. This was a brief about the disaster management cycle. Next, I would like to cite here a brief sketch, a brief draw a line of a city disaster management plan. So you can also follow these steps, or from the NDMA's website, you can take how can we prepare a disaster management plan, what are the basic steps basically for preparing the disaster management plan of your concerned organizations. So these are some steps. So first we will carry out a detailed research or detailed study basically. So review the city's planning framework, analyze the past hazards, because analysis of the past events is also very important, so that we can take some measures, we can take some actions as per the previous hazards or previous disasters, to determine the resource base and note the key characteristics of the city that can guide the emergency operations. Next one is HRVA, conduct hazard risk and vulnerability analysis. HRVA helps in strategic planning by way of analyzing the risks, vulnerability, and coping capacity to take guided initiatives. Next one is determine the resource base, map and list the existing capacity. We have to focus on the the current capacity of our area, capacity of the community, the resources, the capacity of our current resources, and identify the gaps and take suitable initiatives for effective disaster response and recovery. Next important point is the geographical and topographical area demographic characteristics. A detailed analysis of the geographical area and is must for mitigation and disaster response and recovery. Next one is develop disaster management plan, a detailed plan that documents the key roles and responsibilities of all stakeholders, risk analysis, vulnerability, emergency support systems, etc., to serve as a ready reckoner for the line departments to take appropriate actions at the time of the disaster. Validate then next step is validate the plan. The plan must be tested and validated for its effectiveness, and conduct mock drills, tabletop exercises with involvement of the key departments to ensure efficacy of the plan. Then review the plan. The plan must be reviewed at the state level by various departments to suggest any improvements and ensure interdepartmental coordination. And then test the plan. Test the plan through use of functional and full-scale emergency management exercises. Then very important point is regular updation of the plan, because the plan must be updated on regular intervals. Because if we have prepared a plan in before 10 years ago, we have prepared a plan. So but after 10 years the scenario will be different. As we all know, after 2 to 3 years ago, before 2 to 3 years, we don't know about COVID-19, we don't know about coronavirus, but at the current situation we all are familiar with this So the plan should be plan should be prepared as per the current situation and the current scenario of the disasters, and this should be updated on regular intervals. Next one is remedial action process. Remedial action process helps in identifying and highlighting the problems in the disaster management plan so that corrective actions can be taken. And next one is plan distribution and approval. The plan must be distributed to the key government officials such as collectors, mayors, municipal commissioners, key departments, etc. Then this must be distributed among the stakeholders also. So thank you very much. This is the submission from my side for today. Thank you very much. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. Next speaker for today's program is Miss Fatima Amin ma'am. Let me just brief you about Fatima ma'am. Is the slide visible? Okay. Fatima is presently young professional Institute of Disaster Management in Ministry of Home Affairs, Delhi. She has done master management from University of Kashmir, Srinagar, JNK. She is working on different papers and participated in national and international training, webinar and conferences. She is experienced professional, skilled in emergency management, public speaking, cyber law, and Microsoft PowerPoint and leadership. Now I would like to invite Ms. Fatima Amin ma'am for her lecture on safety of first responders. We are presenter privileges to you, ma'am. You are not audible, ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Now you are audible, ma'am.
So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for the nice set of introduction. I really thank Maharana Pratap University of Agriculture, Science and Technology for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts about the safety of first responders. So I am just gonna share my slide. Just let me know if it's visible. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am. It's starting to share the content. I think it will be visible. Yes, ma'am. It's visible now.
Okay. So thank you so much. So yeah, I'll just want to share about the experience about the first response and safety of first response and safety of, for first responders. So moving, the next slide is not moving. Okay. Just a minute. Mhm.
Visible now.
So yeah. So this is the, I guess Harshad has shared about this, but just let me give a brief introduction about the disasters. From the past few years, like a few decades, we can say that it has indicated that substantial increase in the frequency and impact of natural disasters worldwide. These unwelcome events have caused substantial human and material losses. No? So analysis of a response or to the past disasters have highlighted some important of reaching the victims within the initial crucial period during an emergency. So disaster, as all we know that disasters are serious disruptions to the functioning of community that exceeds its capacity to cope using its own resources. everyone is knowing like about the disasters and how they are caused. If I have to give the cause of the particular disaster, we know that how earthquake are caused. It's because of the movement of tectonic plates, and how what is the reason behind the tsunami, because of the earthquake that occurred in the ocean that gives rise to the long and mighty waves that like those waves, we know the impact of those things. And as per the John Hopkins and the International Federation of Red Cross Crescent Society, they state that the word disaster implies a certain overwhelming unforced event. See, first, if you go through the different definitions of disasters, you will find that it was like a someone has defined it as, in old times they were like a disaster, it's because of our we do something bad in our past. So this is the like the God has been is like we do bad, so these things comes because we do bad things, so this is for our sins we have done in our past, so that's why a disaster occur. That's a bad star. Usually a literal meaning of this means bad, and star, that is star. So disaster happens when a community is not appropriately resourced or organized to withstand the impacts. Now, if giving example, if society is ready for a disaster, that means that we will not have that much impact of that particular disaster. See, people in Japan are facing disasters. So they are having earthquake there. But why? The people, or there are not so much, we can say that afraid, or they know how to cope or manage things, because they have made their living or their buildings according to that particular disaster. Their buildings codes, their standards, they're very high. They have like they are having a polymer structure over that that helps to prevent disasters. No, so we just have to like organize ourselves to withstand the impact of a particular disaster, and whose phenomenon is vulnerable because of poverty, we can say that, or exclusion of socially disadvantaged in some ways. And disaster damage, it occurs during the immediately after the disaster, no. So this is usually measured in physical units, like how what kind of square meters of housing, or the roads are being affected, or the partial destruction of physical assets and the disruption of basic services and damage to the livelihood in that affected area. So Harshad has already described. I'll not go to this cycle of disaster management, because my topic is a bit different, because I have to say, like, show the response of like safety of first responders, and it comes under the response phase, where we first we see how our first responder, that is the NDRF or SDRF, whatsoever, go there, or community, that is the basic first responder in the society, and what should we do for their safety. Although they are securing, they are for our safety, but we should also think about their safety also. So that's my point for today. So this is a basic vulnerability profile of India, that we know that India is vulnerable in varying degrees to a large number of natural as well as man-made disasters. Over 40 million hectare, that is 12% of land, is prone to floods and river erosions. That means 58.6% of land mass is prone to earthquake of moderate to very high intensity. And of the, we know our coastline is 7516 kilometers long, of which 570 kilometers is prone to cyclones and tsunamis. So this is the vulnerability profile of India. We can see that how much vulnerable our India is. And further, the vulnerability not only to the natural disaster, but also to some nuclear, biological, and chemical disasters. And terrorism has also increased day by day. So this is the vulnerability of various disasters, like from earthquake we get affected by 58%, 16 by drought, 12 by, in fact, the flood has been increased. It's 14% now, and 8% of cyclones and landslides, that's also been increased. So this is the loss of economic losses due to the disasters, like from the period of 91 to 95, how the number is increasing from 1 to 5 now. The number has been reached more from 2005 to 2021. The trend is increasing. And it's because of, we can say that the climate change is increasing, and with the help of climate, not help of, because of climate change, we are having so frequent occurrences of floods, We are having landslides, flash floods, the GLOF, if you have heard about that, the glacial lake outburst, that is so common. And the reason is global change and climate change. And we know that how the glaciers are melting with the time. And this is the annual impact of people, that is the loss of lives and people affected, and the houses that has been lost in the particular period of time. And the loss is not in just hundreds and thousands, it's in 1,000 crores per year. So talking about the basics, that is response and rescue. We are having the National Disaster Response Force, and it's having some 10 battalions, and the task is for specialized response during disasters, and they are well equipped and trained in research and rescue operations, and assist in community training and preparedness, and impart basic and operational level training to states, SDGs, SDRFs, and police, defense, or home guards. And they are proactively deployment during the impending disaster situations. The disaster response at state level, the capacity building of fire service, and civil defense. So some tagline between the event and official response is unavoidable. Yet, majority of casualty occur during this time. Thus, there is need for such a mechanism to be in place. No? This is the response and rescue force. But what particularly we should do for first responders? The objective first response is to build resilience in the affected community, to respond with a great fortitude in the event of disasters, as such, to register losses before official help arrives. However, we know that the first responders is complementary to official response. A disaster response, or on the part of, like, if we have to see the aspects of government, it's a long-term concern. Since it's devoted with development, social and economic vulnerability is greatly reduced. The capacity of poor to cope with the adverse first responders. This is the location. And so what actually, from where the response starts? It starts from the family. Like, first of all, we have to see the family preparedness plans. No, see, if we have to see that the first responders, on their on their part in disaster situation, what they do is, therefore they as a prerequisite, their coping capacity has to enhance by improving their material situation. This could be possibly only through combined efforts, or by on the part of the administration, the NGOs active in the area of disaster management, and more generically, particularly in the developing countries, as India is a developing country, in development concerns such as poverty alleviation, upliftment of weaker sections, etc. And at the family level, first of all, what a responder should do, that he or she should identify the hazard, that what type of disaster are more likely to happen in that particular area in which they are living, or what kind, what and how should they learn, or what should they learn, or what to prepare for, the different we are having different information for disaster preparedness series, and we should know about the community's warning system and signals, if or and locally identify some local organizations that perform emergency management, like some Red Cross, Crescent societies, some NGOs are there, and know how to contact them. And this should be done before, like it's not valid after it, we are hit by a disaster. This is the thing. Like we don't know. We live in India. Live in India is that country that is has like a place to multiple disasters. So these kind of things, like if I am living in Delhi, I should know about that in Delhi, like what kind of disasters there may be happen in disasters, and am I or my family prepared for that particular disaster? Like to educate yourself, to educate my family, on the disaster plans at your place, at your workplace, or if somehow if my brother or my sister, they are at their school level, is there any disaster management plan for their school, or whatever, and what if God forbid, and if a fire occurs in that particular period, are they having any plans for that? Or this is the first thing, like first of all, we should have to identify the hazards. Second is to prepare to assemble a disaster, like a toolkit. Like if we are hit by a flood, are we having that basic needs we need to fill at the time of disaster? Are we having the adequate supply of water that we need? Because we unless and first responders or people or community people reach us, we should have that proper kind of kit in which we should survive for those 2-3 days. We should locate ourselves in the safe places in our home for each type of disasters. If it's an earthquake, moving out, if it's like if you are like if we are hit by an earthquake, and if you can see that you can move outside from your house to the open area, go for that. And if you see that moving out will worsen the situation, sorry, grab the corner, hold the table, and do that duct tape hold method. Sorry, just a minute. Also, determine the best evacuation routes from your home. Became trained in first aid and CPR. Okay, let's like have a scenario that, okay, we are hit by a flood. Okay, and being a first responder, other peoples don't know about the first aid kits and CPR. So what should be my thing? Like I should start teaching my family members to show them how to do first aid or CPR. Okay, if maybe if I am the first responder and I am if I went to some other place to rescue other people's, what my family should know about that, about the first aid and how to give CPR. Like I should prepare them. Also, to make a complete inventory of your home and property, because once we are hit by a disaster, it will be very difficult for us to locate that particular thing. And same that I was talking, that teach each family member how to use fire extinguisher and where to find one. It is not like we are having fire extinguishers in every building and no one knows to operate it. Like give me like if it's a question for everyone. Do anyone of you know how to use fire extinguishers, or what kind of fire extinguishers are we using? Like there are 3 types of like of different types of fires. We are having fire in type of fire A, B, and C. And do you know what kind of like fire extinguisher should we use at that time? And this is a common question for everyone. Are we having that? Like are we having that knowledge that how to use fire extinguisher? These kind of things should be like taken into consideration. And a family meeting, like hold a family meeting, okay, in order to protect our homes and family, it's important to be prepared and have a plan in place. We never know what happens tomorrow. The family preparedness plan contains 4 steps. That is, family should take to be ready for any disaster. Meet your family to discuss what is important to be prepared, and also do the review of disasters that most likely to occur and explain what to do in such each situation, and assign responsibility to each family member, and a plan to work together as a team. Decide on locations where you will meet in case a disaster strikes. Discuss what to do in an evacuation and create a family evacuation plan. Document how family will communicate if a disaster strikes. These are the things that we think that okay, it's not important, but what if it's like we are the we can see that how much we the climate change is like going on. The kind of disasters are like it's like it will be they are becoming so frequent. We were not having that much of floods. The increase of 12% to 14% is a big thing in case of floods or flash floods. We are having now floods in that area where some decade before that we had the drought. Now we are having the flood in that particular area. Also practice our year plan. Since we made the plan, we should practice our family. Okay, do you know? Yeah, I have taught you that how to use the fire extinguisher, or I have told you how to do the duct type model. So are you having idea about that, or do you know how to do the CPR, or are you having awareness yeah, about the first aid kit, or the disaster toolkit? Are we having everything in that, and update and emergency contacts in case of any disaster occurs? So disaster response, as I'm discussing it same. So it's like continues to mitigate the effect of disastrous events to prevent any further loss of life and property. That is why we use disaster response. We don't want that there should be further loss of life or property damage. We need to restore order in its immediate aftermath and re-establish normality through reconstruction and rehabilitation shortly thereafter. There could be possible only through combined effects of the part of administration, as I was talking about, and NGOs. Since disaster and disaster management and development concerns such as poverty, they uplift the vegan. There is some in VCUT section. The effect is more. We can say that we are not able to reach them, or it's because of some they are not financially so up, so they will be knowing about the fire extinguishers, or what actually fire extinguishers are. Maybe most of people don't know about them. So in the past, if we giving the past experience, in the past, disasters were looked upon isolated events, like responders by the governments and various agencies, without taking into account of the social, economic loss and long-term implication of such events. However, since a disaster retarded development severely, and attempted are required to build up of coping capacity of the affected communities, as well as the local administration for combined concerned effect to mitigate the human and material cost of disasters, which are rightly emphasized in the if you can see the 10th plan in India, that is from 2002 and 2007, you will see the things in it, about the disaster responders. The concerns for the first responders have been expressed over behavioral evaluation that sets in personal innovated in first response out of exposure or to harrowing scenes of deaths and devastation. As affected, first responder, we all know that first responders may also be affected. How? Let's give me an example. We had a Mumbai attack, in which a lot of people died. We had flash floods. A lot of people died in it. So, the first responders are affected by post-traumatic stress, for which behavioral therapy is the form of psychosocial counseling is recommended. And if maybe there may be a question in your mind, who actually are first responders? No? As per, if you can search on Wikipedia, it will show that it's a certified person or responder who has complete 40 or 60 hours of training in providing care for medical emergencies. No, they are not having that one only. They are more skilled than someone who is trained in first aid, but are emergency medical technicians. A certified first responder can be seen either in advanced first aid provider or somewhat limited provider for emergency services. If I may ask you, do you know what kind of first responders you are knowing? Can you just give me example of first responders, if anyone can? Let me see. We faced COVID in 2020. During that phase, who were the first responders? those doing the firefighters, they were taking care of people. If they were affected by disasters, some doctors lost their family, or some of the doctor dies because of COVID. You can see the kind of stress or trauma the family or the close one have gone through. So we should be thinking about their safety also, and how we can do that. In first responders, community is like, if you can search that who are the first responders, community based disaster reduction process, like community, the local community is taken as a primary focus of attention in disaster risk reduction. It is common unit which is affected by disaster, and most importantly responds to deal with the event. Disaster planning is seen as an ongoing social activity which needs to be incorporated into social life. The paradigm shift you have seen in understanding of disasters as social phenomena rather than natural occurrence also shifts the stress from physical and technological solutions to those which are social in nature. So, protecting the safety and health of disaster responders is critical for obvious reasons. But a safe and healthy workforce is better able to provide the community with an effective, comprehensive response and recovery. Uh, Also, these are the common objectives for responders, like what the role of responders, like saving and protecting human life, and the revealing the suffering and containing the emergency, limiting its escalations, and providing the public and business with warning, also protecting the health and safety of responding persons, safeguarding our environment. These are the objectives that our first responders are doing. So, since I am continuously talking about the safety of responders, so we should manage responder safety really means managing risk. The nature of work emergency responders make is impossibly to complete eliminate all dangers. Consequently, measuring to protect their well-being are actually efforts to manage their level of risk. And decision making must continuously weigh the potential benefit of actions against the hazard involved. This involves three processes. First, we have to gather information about the situation. Second, we analyze the available options and make decisions. Third, we take action to implement those decisions. And how we can protect those responders during major disasters, it needs a coordination and multi-agency effort. That means these improvements will help protect responders during a catastrophe. But alone, they will not be enough because of its uncommon scale and complexity. A major disaster changes the nature of response operations, safeguarding responders in all these exceptional circumstances should no less be coordinated a multi-agency endeavor than the overall operation is managed. Managers should view the workforce as a whole from an ancient wide perspective, seeking to building a universal understanding of risks and requirements. So these are the tips for taking care of ourselves. Since I am from a disaster management background, so maybe I should call myself in the emergency response in a time of disaster. I should know what kind of tips I should take care of. Like responding to disaster is both rewarding and challenging work. We all know that. Source of stress we go through for emergency responders, and that is like human suffering, risk of personal harm, intense workload, life and death decisions. Sometimes what happens if we are in a kind of scenario where we have to save, we can save ourselves, or we have to save the person that is stuck in kind of what I say, flood or fire. So we need like those kind of decisions are like life and death. Here I am thinking about my life, and in front of me there is the person is he or she, like there is a death situation out there. So kind of taking of taking those decisions is very difficult sometimes. and separation from family. These kind of this kind of challenge that the responder is going through, like a stress prevention and management is critical for responders to stay well and to continue to help in this situation. There are important steps responders should take care before, during, or after an event. That's like prepare for a response and like understand, identify burnout or secondary traumatic stress. We need to get up from team members, responder care, self-care techniques, and it's important to remind ourselves like it's not selfish to take breaks. Like we should do
Ma'am,
sometimes.
uh,
Yeah.
uh,
Hello. Am I not audible?
no, ma'am, you're audible. Malas has already joined and he's
Okay,
joining
okay,
from
okay.
Illinois,
So
USA.
yeah,
So
yeah,
could you please
this
come
was
up
the
with-
last
yes,
slide. So
okay, ma'am.
at the end, I just want to
Yes, ma'am.
conclude that the
5
first response in the form of a positive social capital and self-help on the part of people in the that's between the disaster strike and official response is critical to save lives as an officially. Machinery takes time to get in action. So I guess this is all from my end. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me a chance to share my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And I'm so sorry
That's
to
okay.
interrupt you.
No, that's okay.
That was a really enlightening session, ma'am. Thank you so much. The next speaker for today is eminent speaker for next session is Ram Mohan V. Naikala, sir. Let me just share a presentation with you.
Maji, my apologies for cutting you short.
The next speaker for today is the point person in injury prevention related to including of caregivers within the medical center as well as the Sohomish, Thurston and Lewis County hospitals and clinics supported by the Providence St. Joseph Health Services. He has performed more than 300 ergonomic evaluations for caregivers, wrote assessment reports and suggested interventions that made their work safe and injury-free. Patient mobility classes to at least 1,000 years, 2000, Washington and California, Alaska and Oregon. Had on matrix as a part of root cause analysis for caregiver injury reduction process, developed corrective measures. The regional medical center stop incidents and injuries with 22%. He has also taught safe patient handling mobility classes to at least we welcome you. We are highly obliged to you, sir, as sorry, sir, there is some technical.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so. I couldn't hear you, but thank you so much. Again, Fatima ji, my apologies. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir. I
Anjali ji, I can't hear you. You're breaking up.
May I audible, sir?
Yes,
Okay,
now.
sir,
Yes,
there
now. Yeah.
must be some glitch. We are highly obliged to you, sir, as you are in Illinois, USA, and you had to wake up quite early to address our dear participants. So we wholeheartedly thank you and welcome you to today's training program, sir. Now I would invite you for your lecture on healthcare workers, occupational safety and health.
Thank you. Thank you, Hemuji, for inviting me. I'm going to share my presentation. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sir, it's starting to share the content. Yes, sir, it's visible now.
Are you able to see it? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, sir,
Thank you again. thank you again for let me be part of this program. It's a wonderful program, and I just want to thank you, Hemuji, again, and also the university. So I'm going to talk about healthcare workers, especially the safety and health issues. Okay. I moved out of this hospital system in November, but I'm going to give some important issues which surround the healthcare workers. So it's a topic which is very dear to me, and although I'm not a healthcare worker per se, I'm more of a health and safety person. My background is engineering, so I'm going to talk about how best we can take care of workers, healthcare workers. Yes, you guys take care of patients, but who's going to take care of you? So that is the important element in this presentation. Let me see if I can move the slides. So the objectives are recognizing the ergonomics and safety risk factors for healthcare workers, understand the importance of safe patient handling, and how to do mobility screening and perform safe patient handling, and what are the concerns we should care about, not only the patient handling issues, but there are other issues which you guys go through day in and day out, and I'm going to summarize a few findings. So if I look back, this is the trend in 2014 to 2015, but it's almost the same until 2 years back. The majority of the risk factors for healthcare workers, I'm not talking about patient, that is us who take care of patients. The main important factors are the patient handling, slips, trips, and falls, exposure to blood and body fluids. So what are the patient handling tasks? A lot of nurses, nursing assistants, therapists, patient transporters. What they do is they do reposition. That's one of the tasks they do in the bed or a chair. Lateral transfer, that is from bed to a stretcher, from surface A to surface B. Holding the patients, the limbs, sitting up, standing. Okay, because what you're doing is you're trying to protect the patient. Total transfer, again, bed to the chair or sit to stand. Position from supine to sitting in the bed. Lifting off the floor, sometimes patients are on the floor, so you end up, taking care of the making sure the patient is safe, and you get the patient up. Okay. And sometimes you're walking with the patient, all of a sudden the patient is falling, you end up catching the patient. Okay. Obviously you do a lot of activities of daily living, you clean up, hygiene issues. Cumulative patient care, you take care of not only one patient in a day, you take care of at least 8 to 10 patients based on whatever the guidelines of your healthcare system is, that the hospital is. Okay. And also, not only that, if a person comes in a auto or a car, you got to transfer the patient from and to the vehicle, right? In terms of slips, trips, and falls, the falls can be on the same level. Falls from the elevation, fall from the stairs. I'm talking about healthcare workers other than the nurses or the patient transporters. The people who work in the hospital system, okay, falls can be from stairs. It can be trip but no fall, slip but no fall. Obviously, you guys do a lot of, you collect a lot of blood and other, so when you're uh, trying to manipulating the needle in the patient, sometimes there may a poke. Okay. If you're giving a, say scalp or a blade, to the surgeon, you're giving it, there might be a cut. When you're cleaning up, improper disposals, sometimes IV lines. Okay. And sometimes the collision with the caregiver or sharps, recapping when you're trying to, again, recap the needle stick. All these are definitely very, very, it's not that you guys don't know, but these are the typical factors which you see all over the world. Okay. But again, this is the trend in 2014, 2015. It has continued up to 2019 or maybe 2018, I should say. But if you go back to, healthcare systems, especially in the US, look at the top again, overexertion, that is, you're lifting patients, you're transferring the patients, falls. But the third one, look at the third one, intentional injury by person, patients hitting you, okay, visitors hitting you, families hitting you, okay. So these are unfortunately the shifted to workplace violence. That's a huge issue in this part of the world, and I'm sure it's in India too. So healthcare workers are being hit, being assaulted. So these are unfortunately a huge issue for healthcare workers. Typical, part of my job when I was at healthcare system, I used to look at injury reports. That is your or our injury reports as a healthcare worker. Okay, so typical injuries with respect to workplace violence is concussion, contusions, sprains, strains, lacerations. Okay, this cartoon says a lot about it. The sad irony is that every day, okay, you're going to work. I worry that I will end up in a hospital because you're going to a hospital to take care of patients, to take care of others, whereas you're getting hurt. How sad is that? So let me get back to a major issue, especially in terms of the body. Healthcare workers are number one in the nation, especially in the US, for non-fatal workplace injuries. Okay, again, the patient handling, when you're handling the patient, is the most prevalent cause of musculoskeletal injury. And nursing has the highest injury rates of all occupations examined. Each year, at least 12% of nurses leave the profession. It's old news. It's 2015 publication, but still it's the same. People just want to leave. You go to school, you go for a college, you go for education to take care of patients, and people are getting hurt. So they feel that it's not worth to stick to the profession. So again, going back to nurses, 8 out of 10 nurses say that frequently work with musculoskeletal pain. Technicians, radiology technicians, 42% have suffered an injury due to patient handling. CNAs, that is, nursing assistants. Uh, According to Bureau of Labor and Statistics, that's one of the most injured in the United States, this particular population, because they are the frontline workers. And if you're looking at the physical and occupational therapists, same issue, same trend, same story. 27% each year. Again, if you look back, this is the old news again, but it's almost the similar trends. 50% of them within the 5 years of practice, 90% of them during their career. So manual lifting. Can you lift a patient? Unfortunately, there is no safe way to manually lift a patient. I think you know that. I don't need to preach it. There is no way you can safely lift a patient. So more than 35 years of evidence has demonstrated that manual patient handling, relying on body mechanics, is unsafe. In schools, they teach you, okay, you lift the patient this way, the biomechanics, but still, humans are unpredictable. We are all unpredictable. It's not just lifting a box. We are lifting humans, we are transferring humans, and humans are unpredictable. So there is no way we can lift the patient safely. So can we eliminate the goal, especially in this part of the world, is to eliminate all manual lifting. Of course, it's not possible, but that's the goal. So the bottom line is relying only on ergonomics. They teach you, okay, this is the proper posture. This is the way you hold the patient. Okay, still, those are definitely, as I said, when you're trying to say, okay, you know what, maybe lift this way, but during the time, if the patient moves, what's going to happen? Your back is going to, end up with an injury. So yes, they say that, be mindful of positioning. People are not shaped like boxes. You know that, right? So the same rules don't apply. Force of exertion, 100 pounds is not light. 70 kilograms is not light. 10 kilograms is not light. Okay. 3-year-old kid typically is 35 pounds, maybe 15 kilograms. Lifting 15 kilograms is still not, not safe. Because you not only just lift 15 pounds, you lift so many weights of the patients. and different patient status as well. I mean, some people can are completely mobile, some people are not. So you need to have a moderate assist versus completely dependent on you. Even if you have two caregivers or the two nurses taking care of it, unfortunately, it's impossible. So look at this. You in a or a, in a shift, you have 6 patients, say for example, 150 pounds each, and you did 6 movements. Basically, you're doing in a shift 5,400 pounds every shift, which is not a joke. What you guys do is unbelievably tough, and I can't emphasize the importance of you taking care of yourself. Just going back to the research, what's happening? This is a simple transfer task. What they did was that they did a biomechanical study. They were looking at compression forces on your back. Okay, look at this. If for example, it's a wheelchair to to the bed. This is bed to wheelchair. Okay, wheelchair to the bed. All this. Look at the limits. You all are exceeding. You take any transfer task, whether it's a 1 person or a 2 person. People are getting hurt. You are bound to get hurt, especially with respect to the back. You know that the majority of the injuries are back. Look at the transfer task. Again, you're transferring from here to here. Look at the postures. And you're using a blanket, or we call what do you call it's just a it's just a cloth. We just draw a draw sheet. We just you use it just to transfer the patient from surface A to surface B. Again, what are the shearing forces on the back? 1 person, 2 person, it doesn't matter. You are hitting the compressive forces, the maximal compressive forces. Another way to look at it, repositioning in the and doing the lateral transfer. They did some biomechanical studies looking at the back muscles and all. So again, you're looking at 10 caregivers, 10 nurses. Okay, their experience was around 8 years. The patient weights were around 50 kilograms, 77 kilograms, and 141 kilograms. They're pulling up in the bed. Okay, simple task, right? You think that okay, it's just pulling up in the bed. Look at the forces again. The spine compression forces. You use a draw sheet. Of course, you can do the Trendelenburg. This. You get the bed into the slope and you try to transfer the patient, right? Or you can use a friction reducing. So we call slip sheets here. Some of you might be using it. Some of the hospitals, at least. AirPol is a air transfer device. You put the air in the mat, which kind of easily you can transfer the patient. So these are all the patient handling devices. Even with those patient handling devices, especially with the AirPod, obviously not much stress on your back. But definitely, if you are looking at this simple draw sheet and draw sheet with the Trendelenburg, you are hitting the compressive forces. Even to the lateral transfer. Lateral transfer is again from surface A to surface B. It's a bed to the gurney. Okay. Or again, if you are using any safe patient handling devices, you are bound to have these compression forces on the back. Imagine if you're doing day in and day out, your back is going to give up. It doesn't matter if you're a young 18-year-old or maybe 30-year-old. Your back is not going to last long. Again, another study, lateral transfer, again from surface A to surface B. They looked at the 20 caregivers. The patient weights they were looking at is 71 kilograms to 73 kilograms. Okay, the forces, again, you're looking at the hand forces. They measured the hand forces. Again, look at it. It's just impossible. The draw sheet versus a slider sheet. Slider board, some of you might have seen. This is the air assisted devices too. So again, you see, obviously the air assisted device is going to help you. If it, we in this part of the world, we see 400, 500, 600 pound patients, even up to 1,000 pound patients. The patients you see here are very, very heavy, unfortunately. I'm sure there might be a good percentage of population in India are on the heavier side, because we love McDonald's, we love fries, we love fast food. So we are all getting heavy. So unfortunately, these are the things which we look at it. Again, look at the forces, look at the muscle activity. If you're measuring through EMG, Everything is hitting, the limits, beyond the limits. So what happened was, at least 10 years back, there was a theory that, okay, what is the ideal condition? Say, for example, I'm a nurse, I'm go to the hospital there. As a nurse, I ask, so what is the maximum weight I'm supposed to lift of a patient weight? There are many studies looked at it, but the ideal conditions, well, if the patient is cooperative, okay, if the patient is not going to move, okay, so that means enough stability in the patient, okay, the horizontal reach when you're trying to grab the patient is maybe 14.5 inches, okay, then the ideal weight is 35 pounds. That is 16 kilograms. I'm sure in the audience, you might be doing way more than, maybe 10 times more than that. Typically 35 pounds is, I believe it's a maybe 3-year-old weight, so again, there is no safe limit. There is no way we can do it. So how can we decrease the risk of injury to healthcare workers? Okay, do you have a policy, hospital policy? Sorry, apologies. Do you have a proper equipment to take care of it? This particular one, you see the picture of this is a floor lift, which can take up to 750 pounds weight of a patient. Okay, and do you have a proper training? When a employee comes, it doesn't matter you have 10 years experience versus a fresh graduate. Do you have a proper training in place to take care of your patients? Okay, so these are the typical 3 things which we should look into. I know in India we have a lot of magnet hospitals as well, right? So you go through some joint commission protocols in terms of establishing the magnet hospital. I don't know how many magnet hospitals have the patient handling equipment or training, but I'm just saying that typically the magnet hospitals should have some patient handling equipment. Maybe maybe during Q&A, maybe I can answer some of it. But again, what is the safe patient handling policy look? Okay, the part of the policy, the caregivers, that is we, the healthcare workers, should use the appropriate lift equipment when physical assistance is expected. Okay, you have every right to refuse. Maybe in India, maybe that's tough, but in this part of the world, you have every right to refuse if you don't have a proper patient handling equipment. But again, not every hospital is the same. Some hospitals in this part of the world, they don't even have patient handling equipment. So it might not work. But what I'm saying is a typical policy. Say, for example, you go next tomorrow and you say to your healthcare administrator saying that, can we look into some worker policy in terms of, safe patient handling? What are the best ways to protect our own so that we can take care of the patients? Because that's end of the day, you are taking care of the patient, but who is taking care of you? That's, that's always has been my concern. When I teach patient handling equipment, that's what I say. Yes, the patient is falling, but if you already have a back injury, how the hell are you going to take care of the patient? So that's you need to. So again, in emergency situation, use a best judgment approach. Okay, report the injuries early to the leaders so that you can identify the root causes. That is important. Okay. So imagine, you and your friend are working together. All of a sudden, when your friend got hurt, how does it look? Every day you can't see your own friend. So those are the things which we should look into at the administration side of it. Okay. Again, the solution is basically safe patient handling and mobility. When I was working in the healthcare system or the hospital system, every 2 weeks I used to teach safe patient handling and mobility. That's part of it's a mandatory. That is, it doesn't matter you have 40 years of experience. You come to this hospital, before you go onto the floor, you need to go through a proper training. If you're just a fresh graduate versus a 40 years, it doesn't matter. You can't say that, oh, I know everything. Sorry, that doesn't work. First, learn what is out there in that your hospital. So we have this, early mobilization is the goal, right? And safe patient handling is how we do it. I'm going to just go through the quick mobility screen, which we used in the hospital system where I worked. Okay. Again, use the appropriate equipment. Okay. Improve the therapy outcomes. And bottom line is it requires less people and less time. Okay. and decrease the caregiver injuries. That is the bottom line for any safe patient handling and mobility training. Okay. So again, this study is pretty important. 82% of patient handling injuries occur when you don't use the lift equipment. So how do you do it? You know, again, when a patient comes, okay, well, first we have to look at the mobility status. And how do I decide if my patient needs that equipment? Okay, yes, if you don't have an equipment, that can be tricky. But what I'm saying is first understand if this patient has enough trunk stability. If I am sitting in a chair, but if I am falling apart, that means I don't have trunk stability. If I can't even get up, you know, typically ICU, that's more of a dependent status, right? So let's go through this. You know, we have this. We developed in this for the hospital system. Not I did not develop it. I was part of this group. We developed quick mobility screen. That is, any nurse, any therapist, any certified nursing assistant can look at it. Okay, do this quick mobility screen, but go into your electronic health record and document it. Okay, what is the bed mobility status? Whether this patient RAM needs assistance. Okay, whether RAM doesn't need assistance, maybe then, you know, we need to use another mobility equipment. So you need to document once the patient comes in. Okay, you of course you document the height, weight, and what, you know, the typical symptoms of the patient, but also the mobility status is important so that you or somebody can take care of the patient. So you know that, okay, you know, at certain point the medication status has changed. Well, the patient was may be able to stand up before, but once the medication is done, but you have to take care of the patient, you have to get the patient into the bathroom, right? And then maybe because of the medication status, his or her mobility might have been different. So you need to document that so that you and your colleague or somebody who comes to the next shift is aware of what's going on. Okay. Again, so this is the quick mobility screen which we developed. Okay, so basically, if you look at the patient action, what are the patient instructions you give? What is the mobility? How are you classifying the mobility? And what kind of equipment you're supposed to use? For example, the bed mobility. Check if the patient is able to scoot. Okay, if the patient has enough leg strength. Okay, whether this patient is able to roll. Okay, towards you. Again, can you move yourself up or scoot sideways or roll over to the side? Ask the patient. Well, no, the patient is completely dependent. Then you know what? The mobility status is 0. Okay. um, then you end up, say, for example, whatever you are transferring the patient, then you know you need to use the proper equipment. Yes, the patient is, again, you check the seated balance or ask the patient to sit. I mean, of course you assist, right? Then if the patient has 0 trunk stability, what's happening is here failed balance. The patient is, you know, going back and he's almost in the bed. So, well, or look at it, you know, if the patient is not able to sit for 10 seconds, okay, and if the patient's trunk stability is almost collapsing, then you know that, okay, this patient needs assistance. Okay, then use a proper equipment. Again, if he or she is able to stand, bear its weight, then again you see, you know, I think you guys, again, it's not that you guys don't know, but check it again, see if the patient is able to stand up. Okay, nose over toes, that's the classic thing we teach here. Again, so then you classify moderate assistant. Okay, the patient is moderate assist, that means, okay, Ram is able to sit, but he still has some weight bearing issues. So if he wants to go to the bathroom, you can't just take him to the bathroom by walking. So maybe put a gait belt on, bring the sit to stand device, and take the patient to the bathroom. So again, so these are the quick mobility screening we developed. This is like a simple checklist. Okay. Again, check, ask, classify, and then identify the proper equipment. These are the things. This one you see here is the air transfer device. You basically, you know, it can take up to 1,200 pounds weight of a patient. Easily, you can transfer it without much, you know, effort to the back. This particular, you know, the colored sheet you see, the lemon color, is a slip sheet we call. Okay. Again, what is again, make sure you first check the patient status, ask whether the patient is able to, you know, follow your instructions, then classify the mobility and use the equipment. Okay, again, these are the next I will share these slides, don't worry. Okay, And these are the ones, again, you look into all the patient actions of each. Okay. And also, I think you guys are talking about disaster here. So the disaster playbook especially was important when during the COVID time. Um, again, I'm only looking at the workforce, that is you, healthcare workers training. So what they did was, again, they wanted to, the step one was, excuse me, the step one was understand, identify your nursing team, measure and assess their clinical skills, because that's COVID time was pretty, it's like on the go, right? So incorporate learning and resources. Yes, you need to do proning, because that was one of the most important factors for the COVID patients. Do you know how to do it? Do you have the proper equipment? Excuse me. Uh, Utilize data and technology in response to search planning. Okay, continue to iterate on best practices and educate to fill the gaps. Enable and bottom line is you're trying to take care of the patient. Do you have or can you create an environment of support? That is more important. Okay. Again, just for a proning example, we try to avoid manual proning because, as you know, manual proning needs at least more than 4 or 5 caregivers. Okay. You need to have at least 2 or 3 nurses, at least one respiratory therapist, at least one physician trying to, do the proning. So we try to avoid manual proning. So we, typically encourage the caregivers to use, the slings. Okay, the slings or the ceiling lift. Again, these are the typical slings we see here. Okay, I'll give you another example. So yes, we're talking about patient handling, but what about the slips, trips, and falls? Healthcare workers. Yes, this is going beyond nurses. I'm just giving these injury reports, which I go through every time. See, no witness to the incident. The employee was walking from the parking garage to the pavilion via the outside stairs. The day was dry and there were no hazards for the employee that caused her to roll her ankle, which led her to fall down the steps. Okay. Walking down the hallway and hit a slippery spot, lost footing, fell hard on my knees. No water was seen. Okay. Another one, I was walking from the employee overflow parking. Again, very slicked up. So bottom line is, a lot of people nowadays are texting while walking. We love to text, right? We don't care what's in the front. We are ready to, nowadays we see even in the mornings, you see kids even texting. I'm not sure where that or to whom they're texting, but they want to use a cell phone, they want to walk. And so this has been a problem even in the hospital systems, when they're going home or, they're coming from home to work, you see quite a bit of, people tripping. Again, just an example. It's an old one, but this gives you a scenario. See, look at this. All these big ones here, these big ones, they're all subject or the person is inattentive or distracted. It doesn't matter. Needle stick, sharp injuries, or major factor is a distraction. You tripped, false injuries, that's another. Struck an object, people have bumped into the mirrors, sorry, the glass doors. We have seen enough in the hospital system. Okay, people struck by an object, people haven't seen what's going on and something fell on their heads. So these are the typical ones. Again, distraction is the most uh, important factor to look into. So again, in addition to distraction, again, coming back to people love to text, right? So what's happening? I'm sure you might have seen this one on WhatsApp. A lot of people are sharing this one, particularly if you're tilting the head down and forward, even slightly, as you look at the smartphone screen, can put as much as 60 pounds of stress on your neck and spine. Look at the flexions here, okay? And that is a lot. Our head typically weighs around 10 pounds. Imagine, it's not good for your. And so again, forward head tilt, and you're texting and talking and walking. Imagine all those 3 distraction factors can lead to a hazard. Okay. Again, we are addicted to distraction. No human can truly multitask. We think that, oh, you can, get a coffee and you're just walking from point A to point B. Oh, I just got a text, I got to see something, I got to see some Salman Khan movie or whatever. And you just, bam, you get it, you get into the hazard or get into an accident. So again, a distraction of just 2.8 seconds doubles the likelihood of an error. Okay, so that is the sad part. Just a small distraction can be a huge issue in terms of a human error. So since I'm talking about human error, I just want to give you two slides which are very, very important, because I'm just trying to cover as much as I can within this time. Maybe I can, give a talk some other time, but so again, how many of you know Swiss cheese model of human error causation? I'm sure some of you have studied human error, but I'm just going to give you an example. Why Swiss cheese? Swiss cheese has holes. Typical cheese, American cheese doesn't have holes. Swiss cheese has all these holes typically. So they use this, Dr. James Reason's book it's a classic. If you really want to understand the safety or the risk or a human error, this is a very good book. So again, you have active errors, okay, which can result in initiating actions, but you have multiple barriers. These are the slide, the what I'm saying is these are the cheese with different holes. Okay, what's happening is, yes, there might be an error, but if this in the next barrier, what's happening is that's taken care of. If the holes match, there might be an accident. Again, if all these holes matches, okay, I'm just trying to give a simple example. If you have all these multiple barriers, if they are not good enough, you end up with an accident. Okay, again, same thing. So you have error, you have the harmful event. So I'll give you an example in the next. So again, bottom line is we have to prevent errors. As a healthcare worker, we have to prevent errors. Okay. Uh, so I'll give you this example. This is a real example. I'm not, so a nurse slipped and broke her hip. Okay. The situation was that she went into the clean utility room to get some, towels. She entered, she didn't see the water. Freshly mopped room. She just entered, she saw the wet floor sign outside. She thought, sorry, the wet floor sign was inside the clean utility room. She was distracted. She just passed through it and she didn't see the puddle, a little bit of water on it, and she fell. She broke her hip. So let's look at some examples here. Okay. Well, does your hospital system have a safety culture or not? Okay. Do you have proper slip, strips, and fall protocols in place at the hospital? What about the housekeeping worker? The maybe, or bottom line is the nurse. So you have four factors. You have the safety culture at a bigger picture. You have within that, you have a policy or a protocols. You have a human element, the housekeeping worker, a nurse. That's the end, right? So again, what would have been the reason? Maybe there was a poor safety culture. That's the reason. Maybe that would have happened. Maybe you don't even have a proper protocol. Maybe maybe you're using some liquid or which might have more shining, or maybe it doesn't. Whatever may be the a protocol which was not proper. All right. Maybe the worker, lack of training, the housekeeping staff. Maybe you didn't train her or him about how to clean, or maybe you use a proper cleaners or the degreasers, whatever that is. Maybe you you don't have a proper training, or you didn't provide a proper training to the worker. Okay. Or maybe that particular nurse who went inside without looking at the wet floor sign and fell, maybe she was distracted, maybe she was fatigued, maybe on that day she was taking care of maybe 10 or 15 patients. Maybe she was supposed to take care of only 3 or 4, but maybe some people, you're short staffed. So all these things you can look into why nurse got, so instead of blaming her, instead of blaming the worker, instead of blaming him, look at all the protocols in place. Look at all the barriers. Is there any way you can prevent that, error, prevent that mistake, prevent that hip injury? So you got to have the proper barriers in place. So that's what the Swiss cheese model is. I'm just trying to make it very simple. Okay. Again, so what should we do about slip, strips, and falls? What we did in the hospital system was, in cleanup. That means, you have certain time, clean. Once you're done with it, clean that place, whatever that is. It's it's your desk, or it's your, a lot of people end up tripping through the computer cards. Okay. Or have a safety ambassador for your each floor. Okay. Card management. Again, You don't keep on plugging your computer, laptop, or all this, IV pole wherever you want to. Have some proper management, proper lighting as well, Uh, and again, can we do education to the hospital staff and curbs, at the parking lots, all that stuff, paint with, some yellow, the colors which are more visible to your staff. Okay, I'll just give an example. This is basically the Kaizen philosophy, just a simple sort, 5S model. What it says is basically sorting every day. Remove IV machine if you're using bariatric commodes, oxygen tank with strollers, fold the items from the counter space, floor items. Okay, straighten them. What I'm saying is, you used oxygen tank. Once it's done, go back and put where it belongs. Okay, just don't leave it on the halls. So return the non-used equipment, keep essentials in the designated areas, organize and prioritize your patient needs. Okay, dispose them. Okay, clean and wipe the essentials, tie the cords or the cables. Bottom line is tidy your workspace. Okay, standardize. Okay, make sure, just keep that as a habit. Okay, and again, sustain it. You got end of the day, it's not only your health, your body, it's your colleague's body too. Then, if you are good, then you can take care of the patient. So these are the things. So we have this, we got this. This is our chief nursing officer, or I should say, sorry, chief executive officer. We took her as a model, and we said, okay, why don't you walk this way? Because people realize, okay, see, these are all what it does is basically, you can't do all this. She has all these folders in her hand. She has a coffee and she has a laptop, and then she's on texting. So basically, these are the things which are you're not supposed to do. So they come on screen. So again, this one is also not a good sign, right? You're doing all these things. You're carrying your suitcase and you're walking and you're, talking. Okay, so these are the. So basically, we developed these screensavers on the computers and also on the posters, so that people are aware of injuries. Okay. Bottom line is, again, you take care of patients, but who takes care of you? Okay, so that's why if you look at the World Health Organization, excuse me, it's recognized the importance of health worker safety as a priority for patient safety. Okay, so that is very important. And also look at WHO, the World Health Organization. They already developed a framework and the model. So we need to use that. Again, the healthy workplace, what is the definition? It's a place in which workers and managers collaborate to use a continual improvement process to protect and promote the health, safety, and well-being of workers and the sustainability of the workplace by considering the following: health and safety concerns in the physical. Okay. Again, psychosocial aspects. I didn't even touch on that. Okay. And again, the personal health risks in the workplace. And bottom line is, end of the day, you go back home, you take care of your kids, spouse, or, parents, all that stuff, because you're part of the community. So again, if you are healthy, you can take care of others, right? So again, they have these 4 avenues of influence, and bottom line is you being the central part of it. Okay. And if you look back the history of global workplace health, you look at the health promotion, you have the occupational health aspects of it. Bottom line is human, having a safe and health workplace is very, very important. It doesn't matter what that place is. Okay. So creating a healthy workplace that does no harm to the mental or physical health, safety, or well-being of workers is a more imperative. Okay. You have an ethical perspective. If it is considered wrong to expose workers to asbestos in an industrialized nation, then it's wrong in a developing nation too. If you're saying that, hey, you know what, you're exposed to here in the developed countries, well, maybe it doesn't matter in the other countries. Well, that's basically segregation, And if it is considered wrong to expose men to toxic chemicals, that means it's wrong to expose that to even women and children as well. Okay. Again, it's not that you guys don't know what happens. Like, if you have an unhealthy and unsafe workplace, what's happening? It leads to accident and injuries. Okay. It also work-related stress. If you're going in that way, you have unhealthy personal health practices, okay, and you have a chronic, non-communicable diseases as well. Again, if you go back from here, excuse me, to the accidents and injuries, then this might lead to absenteeism. Okay, again, your workers' compensation claims, at least in this part of the world, workers sue the companies or the healthcare systems. Okay, then you have the increased cost, decreased productivity. End of the day, your hospitals may close. So again, it's not that you guys don't know, but this is very important because it's a chain of events which lead to, your ill health. And even American Institute of Stress, what it's saying is developing programs to support mental health in the workplace should be a priority to managers, senior leaders, and human resource professionals. COVID really hit us bad. I mean, especially healthcare workers. I can't thank you guys enough. It's not an easy task. I'm not, as I said, I'm an engineer. I only teach or train, but I'm not a frontline worker in a way. But you guys are frontline workers. What you have gone through, what you're still going through, I mean, I can't even, quantify it. Again, uh, this is the problem. Stress leads to performance impairment, leads to an error, okay, leads to an accident. The accident can be sometimes fatal or maybe just an injury. But again, this is a cycle, kind of a cycle. And in fact, ISO developed a standard, that in terms of, again, managing psychosocial risk. So everybody is trying to look into these aspects of mental health because, end of the day, uh, as you know, holistic health is important. Yes, physically you might be good, but mentally you might not be good. You have seen enough deaths with COVID, and you have seen enough, injuries that you can't even cope with it. And then if you can't, then how are you going to take care of your patients? Okay. Again, so these are the elements which we should pay attention to. We should be mindful of. Okay. Again, I've seen this. This is a very good document. Again, it's not that you guys don't know. You're in India, so I'm sure you should know. If you haven't looked at it, this is a very, very good. This is a PDF book, and also a pretty good talk. Webinar looking at OHS for healthcare workers in India. Wonderful. I really enjoyed, reading through it and also listening to this particular one. They came out with this document towards the basically 25 governance challenges and legal reforms post-COVID India. Again, summary is healthcare sectors or hazardous workplaces that have challenges that contribute to health, safety of both workers and patients. To enhance health and safety of both worker and patient, use a variety of concepts, theories, methods from ergonomics, human factors, public health models, try to, again, bottom line is to look into aspects of healthcare workers, outside of the worker safety and health. Okay. Even who stresses the same too. So again, thanks for this opportunity. And if you guys are, I'm open for questions. So Emoji, I'm ready. If anybody has questions, I would love to answer. Thank you.
Is there anyone having any question regarding this topic?
My apologies for going so fast. I just thought maybe you guys, I just don't want to, I just want to stick to the time. So thank you.
No, sir, it was very thorough and very engaging, sir. Thank you so much, sir. I don't think, sir, there are many questions. My apologies, sir. Very thoroughly engaging and very enlightening, sir. Thank you so much. Um, with this being said, I think we have
Respected Maikala sir, I'm really very thankful to you for sparing your time and always being positive to our responses, because I know you are not well and you are engaged in a conference which you have to just go immediately after this. But your presentation was enlightening to us and an eye opener to the healthcare workers. We in turn will we can engage our students and get researches done on such a topic. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Emoji.
with Maikala's session. Now
go
we've
ahead.
come to the end of today's session. हम तहे दिल से शुक्रिया अदा करते हैं प्रोफेसर राम मोहन माइकाला सर का, कोमल वर्मा मैम का, फातिमा अमीन मैम का और हर्षित शर्मा सर का, जिन्हें अपना कीमती वक्त देकर हम आज हमारे पार्टिसिपेंट्स को ऑक्यूपेशनल हेल्थ एंड सेफ्टी के बारे में ज़रूरी जानकारी मुहैया करवाई. Now we meet tomorrow lined up for you by Dr. Nirbhan Chaudhary and Dr.